Great. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Jez, one of the co-founders and CEO of Eden Smith, and I'm here today with Daryl from Hexdon, founder of Hexdon, data culture experts. And I think the first thing I want to say is it's great to be back, obviously, at a physical event, because last year it was really, really difficult going through a virtual conference, but also having just been through such, an awful time, but with so much impact in the job market, because we saw it firsthand. And I just want to just quickly share with you what happened to us as Eden Smith. Literally on the day of lockdown, our permanent hiring pipeline dropped. So every single customer that we had who was hiring at that time literally just stopped hiring. Luckily, we had a lot of projects and things going on which saw us through the pandemic, and we took all of the same action that most businesses would to ensure that we could keep the lights on, and we changed our own operating model. So we went completely remote first, we did a tech refresh, did all that sort of stuff. And as of today, you know, obviously we're still here and we've come out of that situation, and actually we're extremely busy. So I'm really happy about that. But, you know, what we did was no different to what everybody else did. And from an operating model perspective, there's so many businesses out there that are going through this massive change, and they haven't actually made the decisions to where they want to go, and it's impacting and affecting in a very big way the current job market. So what I'm going to do today is I'm not going to go through anything in great detail, but I just wanted to give you a bit of an update of where we're at. I want to try and change your mindset a little bit about how you're going to think about building teams, or if you are looking for work, what you need to do. And just as a highlight, I was just talking to Daryl about this. At this particular conference, 90% of the inquiries we have had on our stand have been about recruiting, people looking to build teams. Whereas 2 years ago at the previous physical event, 90% of the people that came to the stand were looking for work. So, you know, what we're going to show you is exactly how it is, and it's very, very interesting. So the main thing about this is obviously the 25% of these workers potentially needing to switch occupations isn't just through them wanting to take a different career path. It's actually because of a result of the changing culture for a lot of the businesses and what they're doing at the moment as a result of the pandemic, and realizing that they can work in different ways. So e-commerce and automation is actually exploding out there, and therefore that's also driving a requirement for lots of different skill sets. And we're seeing that all over the place at the moment. So just a few headlines for you. At the moment, we're seeing the largest amount of requirements across the whole job market in the last 15 years. And we're currently seeing the lowest candidate availability in the last 15 years. So the gap has not only created a cavern, the other thing that's happening, as I've just mentioned, is companies are changing what they're doing. So they're changing to this remote working model. Some companies are saying, no, actually we want people to be coming back to the office they are saying on average about 2.6 days per week across the market. The problem we got at the moment is that the market hasn't made that decision. Lots of companies are just talking about it, and that's causing lots of candidates to just sit tight where they are. So normally what happens in the market is you see lots of mobility of people moving around, and that generally feeds that, and agencies feed that. That's how we obviously make our money, and we move people from one job to the next. But then you have the fresh market, or people moving from job to job because they're literally just, you know, they want to change a career, or they're being promoted, or whatever it might be. But that's not happening. So therefore, we've just got this massive halt on what's going on. But it hasn't changed the requirement for what the businesses, you know, are trying to achieve, because they want to complete their projects. So we've got this high number of vacancies. We've got a massive drop in candidates at the moment. Fastest rise in the contractor market. That always happens when you have new skills. So in the data market at the moment, it hasn't changed. You know, the data engineering market is very contract-led at the moment. Same for architecture, probably mid in the analysis world. But data science probably, I'd say, is about half and half. But, you know, trying to recruit a permanent data engineer at the moment is extremely difficult. And anybody who's trying to do that at the moment, I think you'll agree with me. Fixed office space expected to reduce by 30%. Everybody's looking for this remote working and flexibility. Obviously, everyone's, I would say, you know, you've experienced the well-being of not having to go in the office every single day. I certainly have myself, rather than getting up at 6 in the morning for a train ride into London and then getting back for 8, 9 o'clock. That's, you know, it's not my world anymore. hence why we made that decision, and I think it's the right one and a good one. No difference in the demand for STEM technology in the market. It's exactly the same as it was before, if not worse. So you've got all these things happening at the same time, and what we need to talk about today is how do you address it? So what are you going to do about that? Here's some statistics. So you can see here when the pandemic, obviously here, the drop, and then you've got the demand. Literally the bounce backs happened within the last 12 months, 12 to 18 months on both sides of the fence. The availability of candidates has dropped. So it's this gap that you've got, and you can see what's happened, but you can see the impact and how big the impact was. Now what that's done from a placements index, if you like, and salaries and wages, if you look at the salaries and wages graph here on the right, you know, if you're a company that's still 2 years, you're thinking as you were 2 years ago, and you've only got a certain budget and you're not addressing that right now, especially in the data market, you're going to have a serious problem. And most businesses, or HR, in a lot of businesses, we were talking about this, Daryl and I, they might not be up to date. So right now is the time that if you're looking to build a team, you want to be aligned with what the market's doing. You need to understand exactly what you do need to be paying, in what industry. Location's not making much of a change in that anymore. We don't need to be paying more because it's a London-based role. We need to be very flexible. We need to start, how can we get these people? Because if you prove to yourself that you can work remotely for the last pretty much year and a half, effectively, be productive and make a profit, then why are you going to go back to where you were before? Because you're just, you know, by doing this, you're opening up more people to your world. That's on the left there, you'll see the graph of the permanent placement index and temporary billings index, basically, of what's actually happened. They're following the same trend of perm and contract through there, but you can see the salary increases. Now, the salary increases, I'll give you a little bit more benchmarking data here. What you've got, the green columns are the average salaries across the market. So if you've got an average salary for a data engineer of 75 grand a year, whatever that might be, what I wanted to demonstrate to people was, in a highly competitive world where it's candidate driven and you're trying to build a team, you have to know about the other 10%. Now the purple line is the 10% of the market of high earners. And what happens here is that everybody benchmarks across this green layer, but depending on the urgency of the role and the, you know, what that role is going to do for you, you have to consider, well, actually, we might have to do this for that one particular opportunity that you're trying to fill, because if you don't, the chances are you might not be able to recruit them in this current state where we've got this big gap, right? So, I mean, I was quite amazed myself, because there's, data engineering, there are data engineers out there with base salaries of 105 grand, but actually the average is about 72 across the country at the moment. And you've got, you know, people looking for heads of data. You want to become data driven. There are different generations of chief data officer, and this is quite an interesting thing. So heads of data, 100, 120k a year, but then you've got these, what we call second, third gen CDOs, earning 250,000 pounds a year on base salaries. Whole point of me talking to you today is just to make you aware of it. All right, this isn't an easy time to start building a team. So you need to start thinking, what can we do differently? And that's why I'm just going to revisit something before I pass to Daryl, because actually there is a link between what we're doing, and that's why we partnered with Daryl and Hexdon, because it's about culture and understanding the importance of data, which will then help you in a number of different areas from a recruitment perspective and a strategy, how you will go about it. Average contractor rates. The column on the left I don't agree with. Says the average contractor rate in the market. This information was, remember, this was sourced through a number of different places. So we take job data, we take vacancy data, we look at the candidates, we've got our own system, conversations, all that sort of stuff. Average chief data officer contract rate is definitely not £545 a day. It's more like 1,000 to 1,500 on an average. But what is interesting about this is across the 5 functions, so we've got data management and architecture and engineering, science, BI analytics, is actually, it's anywhere between £500 and £600 a day across all of the functions, which I think it's quite interesting, especially when the biggest demand is around data engineering, and that's having a big impact on perm side at the moment. You normally see that trend follow, but it hasn't really followed here. So there's some contract wages. All of these slides will be shared as part through the conference, and I really do want you to look at them, because, you know, if you're thinking about building a recruitment plan right now, then this is what you need to be looking at. Fastest growing jobs. Pandemic, forced cultural change, remote working, some in the office, some not at the office, causes problems, obviously. You're seeing, this was Gartner data actually. Director of Remote Working as a job title coming through. And if you'll see the well-being trend, mental and health commitment counsellor, then you've got things around large scale out of artificial intelligence, AR, workplace environment architect. You can see again it's all culturally focused about looking after your people, how they're engaging, how they're interacting, how the communication flow goes through the organisation and keeping people in touch. These should all be on all of your agendas, and actually it could be something that you might be interested in for the future as a career. But they're definitely happening, trust me. There's obviously a big focus around cyber and security, lots of cyber attacks through the pandemic, so there's a lot of concentration on that. And this human machine manager I find quite interesting, right? So what happens, you've got big companies like Amazon with all the robots, robotics going everywhere, RPA is going to be massive, but how do we manage the relationship between people and the robots? Because people are going to get put out by the robots, right? They're going to start to understand. So there's actually a role that seems to be created around that, which I find that's brilliant. So I'm going to finish up on my next slides and pass over to Daryl in a second, but this is what you should be doing or thinking about. And I did this, we talked about this in 2018 here, and we said this is how you want to be thinking about building a team, right? We don't start here, because if you start with recruitment, so much has been lost. 90% of the people here that are working for a company, that company won't understand the capability or skills or attributes you already have. So we should be starting around, what do we currently have in the business? Where can we move them? And what can be trained, right? So this thing happens twice. You understand your capability, you move someone from one place to another to plug that gap, creates an easier gap to fill, because where you've moved them to is the bit you couldn't recruit, right? So you do that, then you train, and you might want to move them again. So think about, understand where you are. All the training you can do is an investment anyway, and it actually creates a better culture and employee engagement. Internal mobility, could be cross-country because we're remote working now, so that's a much easier way to do it. And once you've done a lot of this stuff, you'll start to be able to put a succession plan in place. So if someone does leave, you've got someone again to fill the gap that you're already thinking about. And then before you start going external, start speaking to an agency about what you want to do, is this right? Do you understand your own brand? Are you selling the business as well as you should be? Does everyone else in your organisation understand what your brand is? So the brand and your engagement is extremely important. You look at alignment, you speak to companies like us and say, what's going on out there? We want to build some more role profiles. Yeah, is this JD right? Are these skills right that I'm looking for? Is there an issue? So we do that, we get aligned with the market, then we build our role profiles, and then we can come out to recruitment. And of course, internships, apprenticeships, anything you can do like that, or engage with networks. We do it ourselves with the Nurture program. It should be on your agenda if it's not already. Large corporates often have internship programs anyway, so they're doing this stuff, but if you're not, then you can. And that's how you'll get to, if you do all of this, when you get here, your original requirement for 20 odd positions is probably more like 10 or 12, and half the battle's won. So look, that's all I've got to say to you today. We're on half an hour today, aren't we? So I'm going to pass you over to Daryl now, who's going to talk to you about the cultural element, and that's why we partner, because this is vital for how we're going to go about things in the next 18 months. So thank you for listening. Oh, my bottle of water.
Yeah. All right. Just checking the mic works. So it's December the 11th, 2017, and I'm in the boardroom. We've got the European president sitting over there. We've got our European CMO there, and the leadership team sitting on this side, including my manager. And the stakes are really high for this meeting. In the next 30 minutes, the European BI and Analytics program is going to be signed off. And with that in mind, because the stakes are so high, the pressure to get this done is feeling it through my heart. But it's an exciting time as well, because we've got some incredible data sources. We've got the ability to execute our data strategy. We've got some incredible analytics use cases. The culture roadmap is ready to go across Europe, and we're damn well going to deliver the sales and market share that we've promised. So as we're going through the presentation, slide 17 comes up, and as I'm talking it through, Daniel, the CMO, turns to me and says, Daryl, why are we investing in this program? Why isn't it HQ? Why isn't it finance? They've got the data and the money to do this. Why does this have to be us? And I'm thinking, oh, crap. We spent a whole year trying to get this business case signed off, and now we're getting questions like this. And what it came down to was, I looked at my manager, I could feel my heart pumping, it was going crazy. And I pause, and I'm thinking, what do I do? What do I do? My mind just, all of a sudden, kicked in, and instinctively, I went across to slide 20. And I said to Daniel, I said, the reason why we're doing this is because HQ and finance don't have the focus that we do. We want to do this. The mission is to focus the business on where to play and how to win. And that starts with transforming our data culture. And that's fantastic. We got it signed off because I saw Daniel crack a smile and I thought, this project is back on. And when it push came to shove, we got the project signed off, and it was brilliant. Because in working with this project and many others, this is what I know to be true. Data isn't enough. Your competitive advantage starts with your data culture. And we see some incredible investment going on in our industry. You only have to look outside to see the innovation coming through as well. But do you know what? There's a disconnect. And we see it in the media sources that we look at. So Gartner say that through 2022, only 20% of analytic insights will deliver those business outcomes. VentureBeat say that 87% of data science projects never make it to production. And New Vantage Partners, their piece of research published this year, said 92% of the C-suite respondents attribute the principal challenge to being data-driven is people, it's process, and it's culture. It's culture. So what is data culture? Well, to me, it's the way we think, the way we feel, and the way we act when it comes to data to drive our business outcomes that we need. It's about trust in our peers, trust in the data. It's about flow in terms of productivity and performance. And it's also about intrinsic motivation, where everyone in the collective is moving and motivated towards the same goals. And along the way, data becomes woven into the fabric of the organization, meaning that more people are solving more complex challenges and using data to do that as well. So we know, with that in mind, that we need to invest more into our data culture, but I get it. It's challenging. Our businesses are moving at 1,000 miles an hour. It's complex as well. And it's just easy to keep doing what we've always been doing. And for us, that means we don't change the programs we're working on. It means that we don't succeed. It means we don't get our bonuses. And that's a challenge that we have to face. But what if we do fight for our data culture? What if we give it the attention that it deserves? Every one of us in the room and our organizations. Well, I know what happens because I've been there and I've done it. When you increase the level of consciousness of data in your business, you start to get the traction that you deserve. When you increase trust and flow, your people start to commit and perform. And then also when you start to think about data literacy and data fluency, what happens there is your people become your superheroes. And of course we need that. But ultimately, when our data programs start to thrive, what that means for us, personally and professionally, is ROI, which is what we all want and what we're all looking for. And this matters now because, as you can see out there, the industry is moving ahead at speed, and our businesses have to keep up. And of course, we're all here, we're all keeping up, or trying to, but there are so many out there that aren't. And that's the challenge we have. Now, I've personally met with CDOs, with data leaders around the world, and I've spoken to leaders that don't even have awareness of their data culture. And I've been invited onto podcasts to talk about this as well. And the number one question I get asked is this: where do we start to improve our data culture? Now, I have 3 game-changing power moves for you that's going to help you to up-level your data culture. We're going to step through them right now so that when we're done, they're going to be yours and you can take them away and execute it. So the first game-changing power move is to up-level your branding. It's 2011, and I'm in this commercial meeting, the weekly commercial meeting, as the group head of data and analytics. All of a sudden, I hear that one of the MDs has gone rogue and tried to solve a retail business problem without looking at the data. What's worse, they didn't consult me or the team that we have. Our team literally exists to solve these data-driven problems, and they didn't think to consult us. So I was a little bit pissed off by that, quite frankly. So the creative director and I disappeared for half a day, and we came back. We came back with something really interesting and game-changing. We launched a brand. We called it Noodlebox. Noodlebox stood for something: vision, mission, purpose, and values for our analytics team. And with that in mind, also came the need for the business to back it as well. And boy, did they back it. We became, in a retail group with 7 brands, Noodlebox became the 8th. And while they served apparel, we served the business with analytics and ROI. So it was really well received by the CEO and all the MDs as well. And it meant that data in this retail group was firmly on the map. And that was meaningful for us and where we were and where we wanted to get to. So when we're thinking of data and analytics within our organizations, maybe with our clients, Interbrand call out what they think a brand is. A brand is the sum of all expressions by which an entity intends to be recognized. And that's really important when we're trying to create movement, trying to create change in our organizations. When you're thinking about your data analytics brand, think about what you want people to feel. What do you want people to think? What do you want them to remember? Because that's part of the DNA you've got to build in terms of the momentum. And what I want you to do now is actually take something down to write with. It could be your phone. I want you to do one thing for me. I want you to write down one thing that you can do to raise the visibility of your brand. It could be that you need to increase the messaging. It could be the frequency. It could be that you need to consult with someone in the business. Maybe it's the comms team or the marketing team to help. Write down one thing you can do to increase the visibility of your brand. I'm going to give you another 15 seconds because we're running out of time. All right, we've got to move on. The next game-changing power move is to tell your story. So I'm on the internet and I'm scrolling through and I come across this really unusual brand. It's a B Corp brand, a toilet roll company of all things, and it's called Who Gives a Crap? I mean, seriously, this is an actual brand. And as I was looking through, I could see some nods in the audience. I was reading through the website, and I realized that 40% of the world's population don't have access to a toilet. 289,000 children under the age of 5 die every year from poor hygiene and sanitization issues. And I thought, that's terrible. And as I was contemplating this, I realized that data and a bar chart, who the hell cares? But when it's data and a meaningful story, damn, now you have my attention. And that's something I really took away from that experience. I thought I'd share that. We talk about data storytelling, right? And I think all I want to say about that is that we're human. And as we're busy working 1,000 miles an hour in our organizations, let's just remember that. We use stories to connect with each other across time, across cultures. So we need to do this more in our organizations. And something else that I picked up recently, this is a piece of research from Exasol. 52% say dashboards are being disregarded because they're not getting the message across. People don't give a shit about our dashboards. We've got to do more and tell stories by doing that. So, okay, another activity very quickly now. Grab your pens or something to write with. I want you to think of a story that's meaningful for you in your business, that can make a change. And with that story, I want you to write down a couple of keywords that you can remember when you leave this session today, because I want you to take it away and do something with it. So in my example, it could be, who gives a crap? Data creates meaningful change. So if you want to do this exercise, give it a go. But let's, mindful of time, move on to the third game-changing power move, which is to build your community. So I'm in Germany, and I'm about to deliver a DMP workshop to 17 of my colleagues. I'm really looking forward to it. But 36 people turn up, and I'm thinking, damn, how am I going to do this? The room is so small, and we've only got capacity for 17, 18. So getting more people in was going to be a struggle. There were more people, but there were senior people as well. And I thought the other challenge is they're going to challenge me and what the program's all about. So my colleague and I had to get really resourceful and get to the why we were doing this. And do you know what the result was? We nailed it, because we brought the data and business communities together. We spoke about what was important first. We spoke about trust. We spoke about purpose and resilience. Resilience was a key one, because in this team there are different priorities. So how do you prioritize them and build resilient teams when the challenges come up? And as we worked through that, we worked on exactly what we needed to do when those troublesome situations came up, and that was a big success. So as we talk about building your community, there are 5 key areas here that we think about. Identify who your core audience is. Not just the inside person, but someone who's really going to back you in what you're working on. And then when you've got those people, you've got to build the trust. And that trust comes with positive psychology, psychological safety as well. 2 really important aspects, because you want them to feel safe as they're partnering with you to take on the initiatives you're working on. Once you have that trust, you want them to participate. You want them to be a part of it. Face to face, if we can do that now, let's make that happen. But otherwise, make sure it's live as much as possible. And then beyond that, demonstrate the value exchange. We've got to keep going with that. You can't just do it once and expect that to be it. We've got to keep banging the drum. And that's a resource thing. That's a resource challenge we have. And then lastly is scale. How do we ramp it up? And there are platforms for us to do that. So what I want you to do now is to think of one person that you could partner with in your organization that can help you to improve the culture in your business. HR could be a really good place to start, but it could also be someone in your team. It could be an analyst or an engineer who actually is really passionate about this stuff as well and wants their work to be shared around the business so there's more appreciation for it. The importance of data quality, for example. And this exercise is all about building that community. So one person is all we need right now, and then go on from there. So there we have it. 3 game-changing power moves. We have up-level your brand, tell your story, and build your community. And the reason why we do that is because data is not enough. Your ultimate competitive advantage is your data culture. And I have a challenge for you. When you leave this space, put down 30 minutes into your calendars and take the time to do one thing that you can achieve to build your data culture. Because when you do, you won't be seen as just a data person, you'll be seen as someone who's actually aiming, demonstrating that you're looking for meaningful change. And you'll be seen as an innovator as well. And lastly, you won't have to wait till the end of the year and to slide 20 before you start to see the results, because you'll know where to play and how to win. And I think in context of data culture and what we're doing with Eden Smith, it's all about people. It's all about relationships. And it's all about data culture. Thank you. Do we have time for any questions, or are we done?
I think we've got a couple of minutes. Daryl and I are, here we go. Daryl and I are also going to be on the stand, which is just here to the left, to answer any questions, discuss anything that you have on your mind.
Yep.
I think just wanted to say, does anybody have any questions at all now, or are we good? There's one.
Oh yeah.
Hiya.
Quite often data people are a bit more not so happy to go out there and build their own brand with people they haven't met across the business. Something we struggle with in our team. Got any recommendations on how to ease people into that journey?
Yeah, I think we probably both have. My view on that is, I think it's a really, really good point. Building your internal brand, sales and marketing skills they're not with everybody. So you're the most intelligent person in the world, but can't, articulate that. My view is to use the technology, use the LinkedIn, use the marketing, the connections, get to groups. It doesn't necessarily always mean that you have to do it face to face. There are other ways of increasing your brand. Doing it the right way and talking to specialists is what I would do, and what I would advise to someone who's not quite comfortable with storytelling about themselves. Daryl?
Yeah, from my perspective, at Samsung and other businesses I've worked at, coaching has been a really big help. So even mentoring and pair them up with someone who perhaps can be the voice for them, and they go in as a team. So you've got someone who's more technical and perhaps someone who's got more of a face-to-face voice. I've seen that work quite well also. But it's about, small incremental gains of building confidence as we go along.
Time out. So we'll be there if you want to. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
If you do want to chat, we're just there. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.